Peace be with you. Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. My name is Alan Kiesler. Today is Monday, the 24th of October, and we're going to be starting a new discussion, a new section of this class, which is about the densities, the different densities or the different levels of consciousness. This relates both to the structure of the universe and to the history of our galaxy. So we'll take a minute to breathe a little bit and wait for a few more people to join the class. So I'll invite you all, while we're waiting for a minute, to take a deep breath, inhale slowly, and then exhale slowly. Calm the mind, focus the mind, and get ready for another class of very important information that we are deriving mostly from extraterrestrial sources, which is an important source of information when we have come in contact with new and very ancient civilizations that have had a lot more experience in many ways than we have. Then we can take the opportunity to learn a lot, just like we've learned a lot technologically from them. Everything in the 20th century that we learned, everything from air travel, outer space travel, computers, lasers, so many things we've learned from extraterrestrial sources, although that hasn't always been revealed. But in the same way, now we're taking the opportunity to learn about the structure and history of our cosmos and of our galaxy. So we're just going to take a deep breath. There's just also information, I think, that's come from extraterrestrials. This whole process of breathing and meditation is something that we must have learned from some higher sources a long time ago, too. All right, take a minute. Thank you very much. So, the densities, it is a word that's used in the Law of One series, which is what a lot of the information I'm going to be sharing with you now is based on. And there are also other sources, which is a pretty common idea. I think a lot of you have probably heard about the different densities in one way or another. The different colors is one thing that's related to them. And the different energy centers in the body is another thing. We will be relating all these because a very common Hermetic teaching, esoteric teaching, is as above, so below. So in the same way that there are different densities within universal or galactic existence, there are different energy levels in the body also. So we will be talking about all of those together. But first, to pick up from where we were talking in this past week, we were talking about consciousness, about different types of consciousness. So now we're going to be going into different levels of consciousness. But what we were talking about was how the creation began. Of course, we're talking in the beginning of this discussion about what happens outside of time. And I just concluded sort of towards the end of last week with the idea of how time begins. So first of all, of course, there is the timeless world, or the eternal world, the trans-dimensional world, which has always existed and always will exist, where there are many, many, again, the right word, I don't know what right word to use in English, or in any language for that matter, but there are many, many worlds, or many realms, or many spheres, bright shining spheres, each of which we could call a universe also, because they're so large. Larger than a galaxy, larger than our galaxy certainly. And each one of those worlds is led by, we can say, an unlimited conscious being. And at the center of all of those, there is the original Isle of Paradise, is the word that I'm using, which comes from the Urantia book, which is the geographical center of infinity and is the actual residence of God. So that's the trans-dimensional eternal existence. Now, moving to the world that we live in, which is a world of many, many levels, many dimensions. We're just going to talk about the different densities of consciousness in that context. So I had described last week about how there are many logoi, or logoses. The plural of logos is logoi, so that's the word that we use. There are many logoi which are sub-creators. That is, each one of these very, very powerful personalities who are not God, but they are creators of vast realms, like an entire galaxy, can be created by one of these beings who is very, very powerful, but is not the original God. So in our particular galaxy, we also have one being who is the creator of this galaxy, the logos of this galaxy. And the process of creation, as I've explained previously, begins actually not from atoms and molecules or from a big bang of unconscious energy that somehow exploded and created the universe. That's a very wrong idea, very, very wrong idea. The fundamental principle is consciousness, and it is a very wrong conception that somehow the matter is the fundamental reality, the subatomic particles and the atoms and molecules, they combine and reach a certain state of combination and life is generated. Then a little more as life progresses and evolves, then consciousness is generated. That is a deep misconception. In fact, we can even say it's a disconception. That false idea has been intentionally promoted through science and education, so-called science and education, by the cabal or by the so-called Illuminati, by very, very powerful evil people who want to control us and who have devised that technique of keeping us under control or bringing us under control by false teachings, false education, of which the foundation practically is that things to come, that consciousness and life develop from matter rather than the other way around. So now we're correcting that misconception, that disinformation that we're taught, intentionally false information, and we're learning that consciousness is the foundation. So consciousness is also the first reality that's manifested here in this existence. And as I explained again, the galaxy, or the logos creates a galaxy. Within the galaxy there are many stars. Each one of these stars is also, we can say, a sub-logos, or a sub-creator, a sub-sub-creator, because the stars generally are the creators of the planets that circle them. That is, their consciousness is responsible for the development of their system, their solar system, their star system. And of course that means the sun is a very powerful being also. And again, I'm going to repeat this idea just so it's understood clearly. Just like we have a body, my consciousness pervades my body. I experience what's happening in my toes, the tips of my fingers, the top of my head. You experience what's happening in your body. Similarly, there are beings whose bodies are planets or stars. So our Earth is also a conscious being whose body is huge compared to ours, just like there are tiny microbes within our body who are also separate conscious beings. So similarly, we are separate conscious beings on the body of the Earth, and the sun is also a conscious being who has a huge body, the sun. So that sun of ours, our star, is responsible for the creation of our planets, and this creation of the galaxy, the creation of the suns, the stars, and even the creation of the planets, this all happens in a timeless state. Why do I say that? Because time is really a product of our, or of beings like us, of our consciousness. That is, limited conscious beings, limitedly conscious beings like ourselves. We agree to participate in a sort of illusion, sort of an agreed upon, a mass hypnosis, you might say. It's an illusion. Time is actually an illusion, but it's a very real and important and good illusion, you might say, because by entering this illusion of time and space, we can learn a lot very fast, and more experiences develop from which learning and development of consciousness happens. So it's not bad. This illusion of time and space is not bad. It's actually good. But we should remember that this time is sort of an illusion. It's sort of an agreed upon dream that we all agreed to participate in. So initially, oops, I'm going to turn the volume down here so we don't. Okay. So initially, when the planets are first formed, we are talking about a state where there's no life. There is minerals, water. Actually, there are four fundamental elementals, we can call them. Sometimes they're called elements, but that's a little misleading for our terminology in our modern scientific and educational framework. So I prefer to use the word elementals rather than elements. And those four fundamental elements are earth, water, fire, and air. Earth, water, fire, and air, or wind. Those four elementals are the preliminary creation on the planets. So, of course, different planets have different histories, but basically, this is a very important idea, and it's very interesting for those of us who have had a Western education, and we've learned about elements, the chemical elements, starting with hydrogen and helium. So those elements come much later. Those aren't the real fundamental elementals. And this has been known throughout history. You can study in any civilization, the Muslim civilization, before it the Christian civilization, Greek civilization, Indian civilization, Chinese civilization, in ancient African and Australian and North and South American cultures. Everywhere, this is a pretty widespread understanding that the elements, the fundamental elements, are earth, water, fire, and air. Of course, there are also other elements that are more subtle, but when the planets are formed, these are the four fundamental elementals. So these elementals are what we would call the first density of existence, where consciousness is just budding, you might say. Consciousness is present, but it's manifesting in the planetary matter. So this first level or first density is not, it doesn't exhibit life. It's non-living matter, we can call it. In fact, usually when we're talking about in Greek philosophy or Islamic philosophy, it's called the mineral level of existence. A place, a stone, a mountain is on that level of existence. And the consciousness is there, but it's at a low level of consciousness. So that, as I was describing a little earlier, I mentioned colors are also associated. So each one of these levels is also associated with a color, the 7 colors and the 7 densities. Or to be more accurate, there are 8, but the 8th one is the first level of the next octave. So just like in music, music is another example where we have the 7 notes of the scale. There are different words that are used in the English European system. It's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then do, which is the 8th one, which is again the beginning of the next series of 7 notes, or 8 notes, the next octave. So the 8th one is the first one. So the 7 colors are first red, beginning with red, then orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So those 7 colors are associated with the 7 densities. So the first density, now we're going to start talking about the first densities in a little more detail. The first density, which is associated with the red color, is mineral, water, earth. And the fire and air elements, they give instruction to, this is the way it's described, they give instruction to the earth and the water to begin forming bodies, just like bodies of water, like lakes and rivers, and bodies of earth, like mountains and rocks. And then gradually, and this we're talking about I guess, billions of years. In fact, I think the time period that's given for this first level, although it's really when time doesn't yet exist, because time exists in the awareness of the beings, and the beings are hardly aware. So the time space as we experience it, this is just beginning now to begin at this point in the history, we can say, of the galaxy. So the next density, the second density, is the density of life, the density of higher plants and animals which exhibit a striving towards the light, striving towards a higher level. So that is a very, very fundamental natural principle which is not difficult to understand, that striving upward, we can say. And the example is given just like a leaf or a flower turns toward the sun. A sunflower is a very good example. We had a lot of sunflowers here this summer. Now they're mostly finished their season, but maybe you remember seeing them in earlier videos when I went outside. So the sunflowers, they always turn. You know, in the morning they're facing the east, they're facing the sun, and then they gradually turn throughout the day, and when the sun sets, they're facing the west. So there is some sort of, clearly, there is some sort of consciousness and some sort of response to the light in that plant. So that is the second density of the existence on our planet, which is present in plants, especially in the higher plants, and in, of course, animals, where there's a sensitivity to light and heat, and there's movement also. So that's a very fundamental principle of the second density, is movement and self-preservation, we can say. Now the third density is human, which basically is self-awareness. So the first density is red, the second density is orange, and the third density is yellow. So yellow is what we have experienced in our history as human existence, where there's philosophy, there's thinking, and there's self-awareness, reflective awareness. That is a basic characteristic of the human level. And of course, by human, I don't mean only human beings living on this planet, but that level of intelligent life throughout the universe on its first level of self-reflection or self-awareness. And that is the third level, the yellow level. And beyond this, well, we can talk a lot about the human level also, and the human history, which is very, very actually important phase. It's actually a very brief phase, incidentally. That is the original phase of the mineral phase. According to the Law of One series, the original phase of our planetary development took about 2 billion years, and the second phase of life took about 4.6 billion years. So that's when time began. So we usually talk about the 4.6 billion years of this planet's existence. That is after the concept of time began. And the third level of human existence, now there are different phases of humanity on our planet. So talking only about our present human existence, let me just make as a little note here. We mentioned earlier, somebody had asked, in fact, about Adam. So there are many Adams, not only our Adam. But this phase of our Adam is, the latest phase of humanity on this planet. This is the development of self-awareness and what we call civilization, which distinguishes us from animals, human culture. This is the third level, and it's very, very brief in terms of the individual consciousness also, as well as the historical consciousness. Each human civilization comes through that phase of the third stage, the yellow stage, and moves on quite quickly. Each one of us during this phase, we make a choice. And this is the very important characteristic of the third level, the human level, is that the beings coming to that level of consciousness have to make a choice, do make a choice. They make a choice, and the basic choice is positive or negative. Positive meaning service to others, negative meaning service to self. So this is the very important feature of the human level, that this choice is made. And that choice then lasts for a long time. And we will talk about that more in future classes. I'll just very, very briefly mention here that as we go to the deeper densities, or the higher densities, we continue for a long time that choice that we've made in the human level. If we've made the choice, the conscious choice, and this is what humanity can do, which animals don't do, we make the conscious choice, a moral choice, whether we are going to orient ourselves towards serving others or serving ourselves. And both actually are existent, and both are even necessary in the development of a planet, or in the development of history, or in the development of a human society, a human culture, a human civilization. So there are always going to be people who are selfish and people who are unselfish, related to others more than to themselves. So this human level is a brief phase. A quick choice is made which direction one will orient one's service. They're both serving. We're all servants. This has been repeatedly stressed in many scriptures, that we are servants. We can choose who to serve. We can't be the masters. We're not the original source of everything. So God is the original source of everything, and we can serve, but we can serve favorably. We can serve God, we can serve humanity, we can serve others, we can serve the creation, or we can serve ourselves, our own selfish agenda. So that choice is made in the third or human level, which all of us are aware of that, because that's where we have been. And the most important point now that I want to stress for us at this point in human history is that we are now coming to the point of the fourth level. We are faced with that challenge, each one of us individually and the whole planet as a whole. We are faced with the challenge of coming to the fourth level, the green ray, as it's called, the green level of consciousness, which is beyond what we have experienced in the past of our history. This is why there's going to be a fundamental change in human history at this time. That is, the past has been a struggle, it has been war, it has been struggling against disease, it has been struggling for survival even, and one group fighting against another group. This is not even ordinary human development, but it's the history that our planet has gone through. But now, as we approach the fourth level of consciousness, that will all end. The long history of thousands of years of war and struggle, that will end as we all come to a higher level of awareness, which is characterized by honesty, truthfulness, because the telepathic abilities of the conscious self, which are not manifested in the third level, that is, we communicate. That's one of the features of human life, that we talk. Animals, they have their sort of language, but we have very sophisticated communication language, and we can therefore deceive each other. We can tell lies. But on the fourth level, you can't tell lies, because everyone can read everyone else's mind, you might say. Telepathy is the common feature. Communication is done by telepathy. As I've been mentioning several times, people have asked me when I met extraterrestrials, what language did you use? And we actually communicated in English, but I've usually said when that question has come up, but it seems that really the communication is not by any language, but it's just by transfer of mental understandings. So that telepathic means of communication is the main way that extraterrestrials, who are generally on a higher level, generally on the fourth level at least, they communicate, because in order to attain the stage of interplanetary and extraterrestrial travel, we have to come to the fourth level. As long as we're on the third level, we are generally fairly restricted from that sort of interstellar travel. So therefore, anyone who's coming here, who we meet as extraterrestrials, they probably are at least on the fourth level already. So they're already communicating telepathically. So this is the wonderful feature of fourth density existence, is that the whole idea of human lying and deceiving each other is greatly reduced, if not almost completely gone. It's very greatly reduced because people can understand what's in the other person's heart, what they're thinking. So you can't say something to somebody which is different from what you're thinking because they can read your thoughts, or we can read the other's thoughts too. So just to give one concrete example of this, I've explained that Corey Goode has talked about intuitive empaths. He himself is an intuitive empath, was trained this way. So intuitive empaths are people who are well developed in this feature of fourth density existence, where they can directly perceive what somebody else is thinking and feeling without words, just by seeing them, being in their presence, or maybe not even being in their presence from a distance. But when Corey Goode started his service in the secret space program, he was taken as an intuitive empath, as a younger member of the secret space program. He had developed these abilities. So when members of the Earth civilization, of our human civilization, would meet extraterrestrials also, they would take with them three, not just one, but three intuitive empaths to make sure that the people who they were meeting could not deceive them. So, because we can be deceived, of course. We've all been very deceived by our whole educational system. Modern educational system is basically based on deception. So, based on a lot of lies, a lot of untruths, which we're trying to correct now. We're trying to rectify the misunderstandings that we've all been given, not only in terms of human history, but in terms of the fundamental understandings of the nature of reality, the structure of the universe, as well as the nature of the fundamental realities, which, again, I'm saying is not particles of matter, but is consciousness, and is motion, is vibration. These are the fundamental realities. So we've all been taught wrongly. So now we have to correct all those ideas. So we've been taught wrongly because on the human level we can be deceived. But as we come to the fourth level, we all need to cultivate these abilities. They are natural. These are natural abilities that are inherent within us, and we just have to cultivate them. And again, people always ask, well, what do I do to cultivate them? The first most important thing is just practice reflection and meditation. Deep breathing is a very good part of that, a very important part of that beginning practice of meditation. So just do deep breathing, and there are different ways of meditation. One is just to focus on the breathing, focus on the breath, focus your attention, think about your breath going in, your breath going out. Or another very effective technique, which is the one I've been trained to use and use, is repeating the name of God. That repetition, whether it's Allah, 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 or any name of God, that's a way of meditation, of focusing the mind and making the mind calm and peaceful, free from all the distractions of thought. So that meditative practice is very, very important in developing the fourth density awareness. And it will happen automatically. These things don't have to be forced. They will gradually emerge. And children have a lot of these abilities. Children being born today and for the past several decades often are born with a lot of these abilities, but their parents and the society suppresses them. They deny them. And children are told, no, 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 that's not. You're just imagining things. So, but we know there are a lot of children who have like telekinetic abilities. They can move something. They can bend a spoon by their mind. That you've probably heard about that. So, but children who have those abilities are often ridiculed even. They say, no, 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 you can't really do that. That's not, don't do that or else that's demoniac. So those abilities are repressed. That's what our culture, our modern so-called civilization has been doing to children. But we should not be afraid of those abilities. On the contrary, we should try to cultivate them by practicing meditation. And the other very important practice is just to be kind and loving and forgiving, developing that mood of service to others and forgiving not only other people, forgiving ourselves also, just being accepting of who we are, not trying to present ourselves as somebody other than who we are in order to try to impress other people. So that mood of being kind and accepting and forgiving, that along with the meditative practice are probably the two first things we can do to prepare ourselves both to meet extraterrestrials. Many people have asked me, how can I meet extraterrestrials? And also to enter into the fourth density, because those things go along with each other. To meet those fourth density, fifth, sixth density, they're higher density beings who are also coming to this planet. So we can meet them and we can prepare ourselves for entering that fourth density, green ray. It's called the green level, the fourth level of existence, which is, we can call it superhuman, or the real, the real natural state of humanity, really, as we're entering this fourth dimension, is to have all these telepathic, extrasensory, psychic abilities. So this is a process that happens in every planet where there is this development of life and consciousness and individual and then human civilization. They go through these stages. So this is the fourth density. Then I think we're going to end the class now. It's been just over half an hour. So I will see what questions we may have had today. How is your health now? It's better. It seems you are sleeping. Maybe you made that comment when I was doing the deep breathing and the meditation for a minute. Hello, sir. I'm not going to bother answering all these questions because everyone is saying hello and etc. All right, so here we have a Muhammad Al-Mas Hussein Sahib. Sir, do you have any scientific evidence in line with the Quranic evidence? What we are as Muslims believe that there must be evidence contained either in the Quran and Sunnah. All scientific discovery is found within the Quran and Sunnah. I've not studied it enough to know for sure, but I can accept the principle that it's present there, but it may be present in ways that we have not understood. So all scientific discovery is subject to confirmation from the Quran. So for Muslims, that certainly can be the case, that you don't want to accept anything unless you can get it confirmed from the Quran. All I can say is that I know in every religious tradition they say there are many meanings in every verse. In fact, there are many meanings in every word. So maybe those meanings have not been understood previously. So, but all these facts, which I am learning from extraterrestrial contact, or from reading books which extraterrestrials have introduced into human society, yes, I can advise you go ahead and try to confirm such things from the Quran or from the Sunnah. I'm sure it's there. If any truth is there, then these truths that I'm learning, which are pretty new for a lot of people, I'm just looking down here, they are there, and I can accept that. So, Assalamu alaikum. Please tell topic. Yeah, so the topic is now the different densities. The topic we're going to be looking at for the next few days at least is the different densities. First density, mineral, water, the pre-life as we experience it. Second density, higher plants and animals, which have that turning towards the light, that awareness. They're also conscious beings. Not only animals are conscious beings, even plants are. That's been well established in Western science even for well over 100 years. It's been established that plants also have consciousness and plants have emotions. So that's the second level. The third level then is human existence, which is reflection, self-awareness. And the fourth level, which is what we as individuals and as humanity are entering now, which is what we would consider superhuman, telepathic, psychic abilities are manifested, and also love, as opposed to the fighting mentality. Human level can be full of that sort of wars that we have, but the fourth level, they will quickly vanish. They won't be present on our planet because the third level of existence, the heart level, the level of love, predominates. So maybe this question, different densities as in what? Please elaborate. I think that question perhaps came before I gave this elaboration. Again, the question, are you a Muslim? I've answered this so many times and I'll have to repeat quickly. Yes, if by that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah is a definition of a Muslim, yes, I certainly do believe there is only one God and Muhammad is the prophet of God, so I am a Muslim by that definition. But I also add, I am also a Christian and a Hindu and a Buddhist and a Jew and a Sikh. I accept all of these religions. So if I can be a member of all of those religions at once and also a Muslim, yes, I am that kind of Muslim. Some Muslims don't accept that you can be a Muslim if you believe like that, but that's the way I believe. What are the names of extraterrestrial books? Could we read them? Please mention their name. I did mention the name, The Law of One. This is one of the most important books presented by extraterrestrials. You can get it. It's available on the internet. Just do a search, The Law of One. There's a PDF version that you can find without too much difficulty. You might have to do a little bit of looking, but you can find it. That's available there. Another one is the Seth series, the Seth books. Just like this Law of One series was, told to a group of human beings through a trance medium by a being called Ra, or a social complex called Ra, which is a sixth density being, or sixth density social complex as it calls itself. So similarly, another such being who is an extraterrestrial or living in another dimension is called Seth, S-E-T-H. So there are also, these books were both written down in the 20th century. Another one is the Urantia book, Urantia. That book, for me, I read it a lot, I've studied it a lot, I've gotten a lot out of it, and I've used it also. I'm not so sure about some of the things in that book, but I think there's a lot of very important information in there, and it definitely is from some sort of extraterrestrial source. Some people say that source is not as high as, for example, the Law of One series. It was told to us by sixth density, so that Urantia book may have been by a much lower density being, so it may not be so pure and perfect, but there are a lot of good information from extraterrestrial sources there. So those are three books that were all presented to humanity by extraterrestrial sources in the 20th century. And I believe all of them were in the United States also. So I'm sure there are many others. In fact, I just can't remember them all right now, but there are a number of other books. And again, let me repeat though, however, that just because they're from extraterrestrials doesn't mean they're perfect. Extraterrestrials also may have their own agendas, and sometimes their agendas are not pure. I think sixth density beings definitely have a very pure agenda to help us, but lower density beings may have some mixed agenda. So be careful, even when you're reading books from extraterrestrial sources. And of course, there are many people who are claiming to be channeling information from extraterrestrials who may not be, or they may be demonic entities even. So we have to be very careful. But those, especially the Law of One, which is the book that I'm mainly using in this week, I'll be talking about the densities based on information from the Law of One. And that book is available for free on the internet, so you can read that. All right. Just seeing if there are any other questions here. Please repeat a short definition of existence. Wow. A short definition of existence. Well, I'm not sure exactly what you mean when you say existence. There's the totality of existence, the entirety, which, as I've explained before, consists of two realms. The transdimensional realm, which is the eternal realm where there is, no death or birth because it's eternal. And then there is the dimensional existence, which consists of not only these 7 dimensions or 7 densities I'm talking about, because each density, just like I mentioned in music, the word octave is used because after you go to the 7th density, you enter the 8th density, which is the first density of the next octave. So in the Law of One series, actually, the authors or the sources, they explain that there may be an infinite number of these octaves. We really don't know, they say. We don't know. We assume there may be, but they don't really know. So they're honest, at least. So this realm of existence, the realm of the dimensional existence, or the realm of these densities that we're starting to talk about this week, this is also vast, huge. For our comprehension, we can say it's unlimited. It may or may not be infinite. Actually, some of the extraterrestrial sources, they also say, we don't know if it's infinite or not. It appears to us that it must be infinite, or some say they think it has some limit, but that limit is so far out there, it's so huge, that even this dimensional existence is, for our purposes, unlimited. So there are these two categories first of existence, and there may be more too, I don't know, but I'm aware of these two categories because, of course, we live in the dimensional existence, and I and some other people have been fortunate to enter into the transdimensional existence, so I've only experienced these two areas, and I know that they are both real from my own experience, and I know that one is eternal, full of light, and then there's this world which is not eternal, or it may for all I know, it may exist continuously, eternally in the future, but it had some point of creation, and time began within this existence of the dimensional reality. So a short definition of existence, first of all, has to include those two categories of those two realms. And then, this is a short definition. I'm getting long already, but it's not such an easy, short question to answer. What is existence? But I'm sorry, there was a little brief pause there in my... Please do not try to contact me during these classes. Make a phone call or something. Actually, my messenger phone system doesn't work. I've never set that up, so you can't do that anyway. But if you do, it interrupts the live chat, so please don't do that. So let's just see if there are any more questions before we end, because I think our time... Yeah, it's been almost 45 minutes, which is the minimum amount of time I'm satisfied for the class, so we can end if there are no more questions. Let's just see if we have any more questions. I think there are one or two more. Hassan Azmat, you might have told it interrupts the live chat, so I don't know how to stop that. I'll try to figure that out. So Hassan Azmat, you might have told this many times before, but I'm very curious that where did you learn to speak Urdu? I'm sorry that person keeps doing that, and I don't know how to block it. I'll try to stop that from happening. So how did I learn Urdu? Where did I lived in Pakistan from 1947 to 1965. My parents were working there. They were Americans. So that's how I learned to speak Urdu, just like other Pakistanis did, just by being a child and learning how to speak. Of course, my parents were speaking in English. I'm sorry for these repeated interruptions. Okay, Muhammad Zafar says, your approach is amazing, and this effort is the first by itself of Facebook. Nice. I don't know if this is the first, but I'm happy to be doing this, and yes, this approach is very, very important. We need to learn about what's really happening in secret space programs, which is really the source of a lot of my information, is our extraterrestrial sources. So, all right, I think that's maybe the end of the questions. So thank you very much. We're going to continue this week, the next few days at least, talking more about these different densities. And since that question was about a brief answer, what is existence? I think I gave a brief answer, but another very important answer is these different densities that consciousness passes through. So we will be talking more about especially third and fourth levels, and when we'll go on and discuss the higher levels. Of course, they're harder for us to understand, but we can get some understanding of them, and that's what we will be talking about tomorrow. So thank you very, very much, and may God protect us all.